What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Fantasy Premier League video. This time, let's preview Gameweek 24, and I will be making my team selection. But before we do that, we have to look back at Gameweek 23. Now, I only got 53 points this week. A lot of my players performed, but I left them on the bench. So I was always going to bench Target, and Gunnigan was basically always in that category as well. But I initially had Calvert-Lewin in my team, and I took him out. And I feel like it's pretty dumb, but I did put Lowton, Stones, and Cancelo in over him. I should have benched one of those for Calvert-Lewin. I should have abided by my earlier rule, which was always play Calvert-Lewin back when I had him. I started off with him. I pretty much have had him this whole season. First time benching him, and he really punishes me. So, shouldn't have done that. At least I did change my captaincy to Bamford before the deadline stream. I put it on him instead of Antonio, and that worked out pretty well. And I feel like that was a gut pick, and I need to start going back to really going with my gut this season. I think that simply worked out a little better for me. But yes, so what is that? 25, 32, 34 points on my bench, if my math is correct, which is a lot. But the Calvert-Lewin points hurt the most. Grealish hasn't been great. Antonio didn't look great. You know, both of them. Grealish had one shot last game. Antonio had no shots. Which I look at shots based on the Yahoo Sports app a lot of times, and they don't count shots that are immediately blocked. So I like that. If they just randomly shoot right into a defender's leg from outside the 18, I'm not interested as that counting as a shot. So that's how I'm going to be talking about shots. And speaking about that, we're moving on. Oh, and red arrow down to 70K. But yes, so moving on to this week, and that's one reason Grealish is on the bench. So Grealish has taken 2 shots in the past 3 games total, and that is not great. Brighton have defended pretty well as well. Now, obviously it's Grealish and he can perform in any game, but considering my other fixtures that I have to play, I want to stick with the 3-4-3 this week and leave my cheap defenders on the bench, so Target and Soufal. Seems pretty obvious because of the attackers that I have, but they're obviously great options because of the fixtures. With that said, looking at Brighton's defense and why I'm benching Grealish, besides his lack of shots, we see that Brighton, last game, they conceded 1 goal to Burnley, and that was Gunmanson. Before that, they didn't concede to Liverpool, and they also didn't concede to Tottenham. What did they do the game before that? They didn't concede to Fulham. That's Fulham, though, so that's a little bit different. But we've seen some teams at the quality of Villa, maybe a little worse or better than Villa attacking-wise, depending on how you value Liverpool at the moment, I suppose. But, yeah, they've defended pretty well. Grealish spending a lot of his time out wide, and we've seen teams sort of focus on him, making sure they shut his goal threat down. That does lead a lot of times to some of his teammates having more space. I feel like the only way Jack Grealish has really had great chances of getting a goal is from half chances, and maybe if they get a penalty, he'll take one if El Ghazi isn't on the pitch. So that's a possibility, but other than that, I feel like I have players that have a little more goal threat than him. The one player I would be most interested in benching instead of him would be Antonio, who simply didn't have any shots last game against Sheffield United and got subbed off early because of fatigue issues. I think he'll be fine to start and get 90 minutes, but we just never know with him. And Sheffield United, I don't know, I get the feeling they have a better chance of shutting him down than somebody like Bamford against Arsenal or Salah against Leicester, which would be the other options. I'm not too interested in benching any United players against West Brom. With that said, I think I'm going to leave that how it is. I don't necessarily think that's up for a late switch. Captaincy is sort of the same way. I think it sort of picks itself. I initially wanted to go Calvert-Lewin, but I just can't captain him considering one of the fixtures is Man City. It feels like a single game week plus 2 points, and I don't really like that. I wish I could frame it in a way where it's okay, he's got some goal threat in the Man City game, which I guess that's true, but I don't really consider it a significant goal threat. That game's got to go in a way that nobody expects it to for him to get points in that game. I still think he's a good option. I would transfer him in if I had 3 single game week forwards, but I can't captain him for that reason. And Gunnigan's simply done so well. He did well against last game. Bouncing back from a penalty and being able to perform like that is incredible, really. And the fixtures aren't amazing, but they're not bad. He may still be on penalties. We don't know for sure. It sort of doesn't sound like it the way Pep was talking about it. And I am slightly worried. We've seen him play Sheffield United, for example, where he just doesn't have a sniff of goal all game. But we've seen in much different games against Liverpool, for example, he basically gets 2 tap-ins and a missed penalty, which were his only 3 shots. So we can't always depend on him getting a quantity of chances compared to somebody like Bamford, for example. But obviously, with this sort of double game week, that rules out a lot of our options. So I think we're stuck with Gundogan here. I think Pope would also be a decent captaincy option. Calvert-Lewin's also up there, simply because that Fulham game could be somewhere where he gets points, and then, the tiny chance he gets Man City. And, Stones, Diaz, I can't say I would do Cancelo. I'd be too worried about him being benched one of these games. And I can't do Lowton personally, simply because he has a lack of, getting points outside of clean sheets. Pope has saves. Maybe Ben Mee has a little attacking threat. Not really, though. But yeah, Burnley defenders in general, I don't think I could quite go for them. But they are great options to transfer in as well. Crystal Palace without Zaha basically looked like they didn't have any threat against Leeds. It was pretty bad. They were losing, 2-0 with I don't know how many minutes to go, probably 15, 20, and they just didn't press. They basically just let Leeds easily win the final 15 minutes of the game. I was kind of mad as a Bamford owner, Bamford captainer. I wanted to see Crystal Palace go for the win. That way Bamford could get some space. Anyway, I was just confused. But Stones could be an outside captaincy option. I still don't think he has much goal threat, even though he's scored some in the past. We also have Tottenham with Kane back now unexpectedly. And Everton just did well against Man City. So these are games that maybe they somehow sneak a goal past this amazing City defense. So I think it sort of just leads itself to an obvious Gundogan captaincy. But I honestly don't love any of the options for their own reasons, simply because Gundogan doesn't necessarily always get into situations where he can shoot. So yeah, I think it goes with Gundogan simply because he has 2 games and he's been so good recently. I just wish he would stay on penalties. I just wish we knew for sure. Other options that I don't have, so I have a free transfer, but I don't have a plan to use it this week necessarily. It sounds good on paper, right? Obviously, getting rid of a single game week player, bringing in a double game week player would be nice. One way I could do that, for example, would be getting rid of Soufal, bringing in, Ben Mee, and then I would have to bench Antonio. The issue with that is benching a good attacker, first of all. The way I'm thinking about it is this. We have a lot of double game weeks coming up, right? If I do that now, that's one less free transfer that I can use in the future for Leeds double game week, for example. So right now, I'm using this theoretically, I would be using this transfer to get rid of Soufal, bringing in a defender for a double game week compared to this single game week against Sheffield United. In the future, I could use that same free transfer, although I'm waiting to use it, to bring in Dallas, for example, who also has great attacking threat, for game week 25, for double game week 25 for Leeds. And then, let's just look at, for example, Antonio's fixture. They play Tottenham, so I could bench somebody with a much worse fixture, for example. So I think I'm going to save the free transfer and focus a little more on double game week 25. That way I'll have 2 free transfers, and I could bring in, maybe Dallas and another Leeds midfielder or something like that. Probably not a midfielder, simply because my midfield is sort of stacked right now. But maybe another defender. Maybe I get rid of Soufal and Target. Does Target have a double game week coming up? I should probably look at that before I say that. Not right away, but they still have the 2 games in hand, so I'm not too keen on selling Grealish or Target at the moment. But yeah, I think I'm going to save the double game week, and I don't think it's necessary for a lot of you guys, if you're in a similar situation, to focus on this double game week necessarily, simply because you could do it in the future, but it is team dependent, of course. If you have easy people to bench this week that are in your lineup right now, then yeah, go ahead and bring in that Burnley defender because they have great matchups. Crystal Palace and Fulham are great. And I could still do that, and then simply, if I wanted to make more transfers for the Leeds guys, I could just take a hit to do that, because I would still have the free transfer next week to do the Dallas move. But I guess it just depends. I have to really evaluate the importance of benching somebody like Antonio or Salah or Bamford if I really want to do that. but it definitely is a possibility. And the more I think about it, the more I'm leaning towards it now. I'm just imagining Antonio blanking against Sheffield United. But anyway, I feel like that's all I really have to cover for now. There are some other options that I don't have besides like a Burnley defender that I would be interested in bringing in. So as far as double game week guys go, I'm not too interested in Everton defenders, to be honest. If you have them, you play them. Luka Digne could be decent, but I'm not sure they're worth a transfer in. The Man City game sort of ruins that. I can't say I'm interested in Burnley attackers. They're not terrible, but Burnley don't have the same attacking threat that a lot of other teams do. It's simply they're not the team that's going to score 3 goals in a game. It's not very likely. Against Crystal Palace with no Zaha, I would say it's a decent enough chance, though. But Leeds only scored 2, and I would say they're better than Burnley in that regard. As far as my favorite options that I don't have, though, I feel like there's a lot of players that are like, oh, I don't really like them, like the Burnley attackers and Everton defenders. Everton in general, I'm not a huge fan of their FPL assets. But Man City players, I only have 3. There's, Aguero's potentially back. I would not spend that money and take that risk on him yet. But Raheem Sterling is somebody that I think if I had him, I would captain him. He's pretty much nailed on like Gundogan. I think Gundogan may be a little more nailed on. But Sterling has that attacking threat and probably more explosion ability right now than Gundogan. But I guess we could argue that it's about the same. The one thing you're going to get with Sterling that I feel like isn't necessarily the case with Gundogan is some attacking threat in every game. So as I mentioned before, we've seen games where Gundogan simply gets shut out and doesn't really provide much. He's stuck in midfield, with a bunch of people in front of him waiting to block a shot if he even tries. And Sterling will at least get in the box and have a chance to create something 1v1 with a defender. So I think if you have him, you may want to captain Sterling. But it's not worth tearing your team apart if you already have 3 Man City players. And Diaz is also nailed on for Man City, so if you have him, he's a captaincy option because you don't have rotation risk like you do with the other Man City defenders. Other than that, though, besides Burnley defenders, they're the team with good fixtures besides City, and a lot of their FPL options simply aren't real options. So it sort of sucks, but that's why I'm sort of more focused on Gameweek 25 right now, bringing in some Leeds guys. But we'll see what happens. Those are my thoughts at the moment as it stands. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you have a good game week. What game week is it? Game week 24. And I will see you guys next time.